Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody ready to go? Appreciate you all coming out this morning. So I understand that there are going to be some questions about State Question 788. So I'm happy to spend some time with you all after we deal with the issue that we're here to discuss today that relates to the abuse of charities, particularly charities that benefit veterans. So if we could conclude this press conference, I'm happy to pivot into questions about 788. Is that okay with everybody? Well, again, thank you all for being here. It's important that I provide you with the following announcement from the Office of the Oklahoma Attorney General. A 20-count felony indictment that relates to greed and corruption that has victimized hundreds of Oklahomans is being addressed this morning, has been addressed in a preliminary way this morning. But before I get into the details of the case, I want to thank VFW Post 577 Commander Josh Starks for first and foremost his service and dedication to our country through the armed services as an infantry officer in the United States Army and the Oklahoma National Guard. I also want to thank you for having us here today at this great facility in the efforts of veterans in rehabilitating this facility, getting it back into a useful, effective asset for you and your comrades is remarkable. So hats off. In a moment, Commander Starks will speak about what the VFW does for veterans and how charity fraud hurts their mission and the mission of charities around the country. We're also joined by AARP's Wayne Blackman, and he's going to spend some time with us this morning discussing how the AARP combats fraud and scams. I'm really honored to work with the AARP and our office's Consumer Protection Day and the AARP Fraud Watch seminars and educational events that we co-host around the state are important. We spend time with senior citizens, teaching them and their families about how they can avoid fraud. Thank you, Wayne, for being here this morning. So I am announcing that we have formally filed a 20-count felony indictment against Jeff McDougal. He has been taken into custody this morning, I understand. He has been orchestrating a charity fraud involving a veterans organization. We received a complaint in April that began our investigation. We found evidence that McDougal allegedly was soliciting charitable contributions on behalf of an organization called American Oklahoma Veterans of Green Country. The investigation revealed a number of individuals McDougal defrauded. These individuals believed that they were giving to a similarly named charity called the Green Country Veterans Association. It became apparent that McDougal set this up intentionally to defraud his victims. A review of bank records and account information for American Oklahoma Veterans of Green Country show none of the funds were used to assist veterans or organizations helping veterans. The funds in the account were going directly to McDougal or different accounts controlled by Mr. McDougal. We are convinced that McDougal was preying on the patriotism and compassion of Oklahomans who wanted to give their hard-earned money to a good cause and to help veterans. Veterans who have put their lives on the line in defense of our great country. That is why he was arrested this morning and is being charged with 18 felony counts of obtaining property by false pretenses for an alleged charitable purpose. One count of making false statements on a registration application, and one count of using a name similar to another charitable organization for the purpose of deceiving the public. While this is an ongoing investigation, we needed to get these these charges filed as quickly as we could to get Mr. McDougal arrested and the operation shut down. To date, we have identified around 600 Oklahomans who are victims and have lost approximately $35,000. I want to repeat that this is an ongoing investigation, but we want to encourage anyone who gave to American Oklahoma Veterans of Green Country to go online to the Office of the Oklahoma Attorney General's website and fill out a charity complaint form. Organizations that support our veterans, like VFW and many others, provide expert-level care and resources to meet the needs of men and women who've served our country with honor. Conducting a charity fraud is one of the lowest forms of crime, and to do it in the name of nation's veterans is indeed appalling and repugnant. My commitment today is that we will hold this man accountable on behalf of the more than 300,000 veterans in the state of Oklahoma. That's our promise, and that's our commitment today to the people of the state and to the veterans that we should honor and revere every day. Now, to hear from a great veteran, I want to bring up Commander Josh Starks for his comments. Commander, you're on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your work. I appreciate it.
I want to thank Attorney General Hunter for his efforts in shutting this down and going after charity fraud. Words, I have a hard time finding the words that describe it. You have an individual and individuals that are in the community that go after and target our donors and utilize our veterans as a commodity to do that, which means that they're targeting the very people that have raised their right hand and protected their freedom, that took the time from their family, their lives, and assumed the risk to give up to their life. And these are the people that they're stealing from. I can't find the words from it. I will tell you here at the VFW, it hits us very hard. I have volunteers that give 30, 40 hours a week, donate their own money to make sure that veterans are cared for, to make sure that we file the claims with the VA, to make sure that we find support for their spouses, for their widows, for the orphans. This is what we do here. To hear that this goes on, that steals money from the donors and breaks the contract between those making the donations and those providing services is just horrific. But I will say that it warms my heart to know that our Attorney General and the Attorney General's office is actively seeking these individuals. With that, I thank you.
Sir. Thanks, Commander. Thank you very much. Wayne Blackman with the AARP. His background and expertise in the communication space is certainly something that the AARP and its members benefit from, and he's a great partner. And at this point, I'd like to recognize him for some comments. Wayne, you're on.
Thank you, sir. I too would like to join those who today are having a mini celebration. It is a celebration of finding, identifying, and bringing to justice the process of getting rid of crime in our community. It is easy to arrive at a crime scene and find the guilty party. It is difficult to find a case where fraud is involved. Our organization was founded in 1958 by a woman named Ethel Andrus Percy. Ethel was a retired school teacher and school principal. And when she retired, she went to visit a friend of hers in California, only to discover that this friend and co-teacher was living in a chicken coop, because the retirement funds of that school district had been swindled by a fraud artist. Fraud is not new. The methods used are new. It is important for us to identify targets, and just as soldiers are targets, so are today's senior citizens targets. We know that there are those who care not one bit about the impact of their stealing, but they are thieves, they are lowlifes, and they need to be rounded up. So to that extent, we congratulate the Office of the Attorney General. We congratulate each and every police officer and investigator who did the hard work to find, locate, and assemble the evidence necessary to bring this individual to justice. And it is further important for everyone to know that organizations large and small, and by the way, 13,000 people a day visit the AARP's Fraud Watch page on the internet. We encourage you to as well. Organizations large and small have joined hands to find these individuals, and in working together with the Attorney General's office, organizations like the VFW, and others who are concerned about getting rid of this heinous crime in our community, is foremost in what we do every day. It is my honor to speak to organizations about preventing this, and so I can give you 3 tips on how to prevent fraud in your life and the lives of seniors around you. Don't answer a phone call that you don't identify the number from, ever. If it's important enough, they'll call back. Don't ever let anyone enter your home on the premise that they represent an organization without a pre-approved appointment from you. And never give your Social Security number or other information to any other individual. That is the beginning of how fraud works, and from that it grows mightily. Thank you once again. It's an honor to be here today at the beginning of what we think is a great roundup of those who should be rounded up. And now in the halls of justice we will deal with these individuals and continue to send a message that in partnership with the VFW, with the Attorney General's office, and other crime fighters, fraud will stop in our lifetime. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. So talented people have options, and the fact that talented people have chosen to work with me in the Attorney General's office is something I'm very proud of. And today, involved in the investigation, I'd like to first of all introduce the Deputy Attorney General who heads up the Public Protection Unit, Dara Derryberry, Assistant Attorney General Julie Pittman, and 2 of our agents, Roland Garrett, Robert Fisher, who apprehended Mr. McDougal today and took him into custody. Thank you all very much for the great work you do on behalf of Oklahoma. So with that, Wayne and Josh and I are happy to answer any questions that relate to this issue. So, questions?
Attorney General, I know you said that you believe that it's about $35,000, but you're still encouraging people to let you all know if they did donate. So we don't know if that's the cap of what it was, or if there's possibly more victims out there.
Yeah, the investigation is ongoing, and so we would just encourage anybody that feels like they were victimized by the scam to go online and fill out a complaint form so that we can proceed with and conclude the investigation in an orderly way. Good question. Anybody else? Yes?
How long do you all think that this has been going on?
Roland, Robert, what do we think? How many months has this been going on?
Approximately 2 years.
A couple of years. Other questions?
Josh, do you get discouraged that fraud like this will make people hesitant to donate to legitimate veterans organizations?
I never get discouraged, sir. We work too hard. We've been through too much. What I will say is it does breach the trust. And so we, as people do wrong, we as other organizations in the same community have to work to rebuild that trust and ensure that they feel confident donating money to us.
Do you know of any other cases, and this may be a question for Roland, was he involved, like, have there been any past cases involving this individual that might have flagged something, or that he had been involved?
Roland or Robert, criminal record that we know of?
I mean, criminal?
No criminal record that we know of. Anybody else?
are there any other areas or people that are charities that they can donate to that they can trust? Who do you know? How do you know the difference between who you can trust and who you can't trust?
So in order to do business in the state as a charity, you have to be registered with the Secretary of State's office. And out of an abundance of caution, you can go on the Secretary of State's website, and there's a list, I believe, Dara, of all registered charities that have the legal ability to do business in the state. And so that's the safest thing for people to do. If you're at all unsure about a charity that is soliciting you, just take the time, recess the phone call or the solicitation you get, and go online and check to make sure that that entity is authorized to do business in the state.
Were all 600 veterans, or he was just using
My understanding, we're not. It's 600 people who wanted to support the interests of veterans that were being falsely promoted by this group, and so whether or not the 600 are veterans is something we don't have a feel for. Robert?
Yes, actually, some of the donors either had a spouse or a relative that was or veterans yourself.
Okay, good.
Did Mr. McDougal say anything when he was taken into custody this morning? Does he have anything to say?
Gentlemen? Robert Rowland?
No. And
Okay.
do you know where he's in custody?
Excuse me?
Where is he in custody?
At,
David Elmont.
yes,
Thank you.
Was he running this out of his house or an office? Did he have an office set up?
Are you at liberty to answer that question, Robert?
and eventually it was at a location here in the city of Tulsa. Right now, it's currently still in the investigation.
Anybody else?
I might add one thing to the question of how do you check the legitimacy of charities. It is
Go ahead, Wayne.
part of the concept of the Fraud Watch Network of the AARP is based on the concept that information is powerful. And so we gather information in two ways. With the cooperation of organizations like the Attorney General's office, we find lists of legitimate organizations and solicitors. And so that list is there and easy to decipher by state and by county. Also, we encourage our members to report instances of fraud. And in doing so, we find fraud watch hot zones. We find areas where fraud is going on. And remember, fraud comes in a lot of forms. The one we're talking about today, targeted VFW or veteran organizations or those who wish to support them. But frauds are in many forms, particularly immediately after a death. There is frauds, what we call the widow fraud. There's the grandmother fraud, where individuals get phone calls at night and says, hey, we have your grandson in custody, and he has one phone call and he has asked us to call you. And so fraud is a cancer. It has many types and styles. We encourage you to look at the AARP.org and follow the Fraud Watch train, and you will see zones that are known as hot zones for fraud and fraud activity.
Thank you, Wayne. Other questions? So, Commander, I'm going to let you close, and then I'm going to be interrogated on State Question 788.
You can take part in that too, Commander, if you want.
Yeah, no. Thank you, though. I appreciate the offer. No, I really do. I appreciate everyone coming today. I definitely appreciate our community. This represents an individual and groups that are out there that are taking advantage. What it also represents is that Oklahomans, as a state, as citizens, are donating money to help veterans. That means the compassion and the care is there to make sure our veterans are taken care of after service, and I don't want to lose sight of that. These are good people giving dollars that they've hard earned to make sure that our veterans are taken care of when they come home. And at the core of this, that's what we need to maintain. And I appreciate you protecting their interests, sir. So thank you all for coming today.
Thank you very much. Okay.